Hello, Felice. Thank you so much for coming to the Close Call Show. We are super excited to have you here. So, to get right into the podcast, why don't you start by giving us a bit of an intro about yourself, your journey, how has it been? Was it pivotal? What are those most important decisions that you've made to get to where you are today?
Thank you so much. And first and foremost, thank you for having me. And it's so exciting, this new journey. I know that you've done several podcasts before, but really great to have this new exciting project. Yes, so my name is Felice, and I am the founder and CEO of My Cashmere. And My Cashmere is as you can probably guess by the name, a brand that is based in this luxurious, amazing yarn cashmere. And we create luxurious, premium, ultra high cashmere designs produced in Perugia, Italy, with really deeply rooted in sustainable production practices, but also sustainable buying practices. So we're really trying to kind of redefine the luxury industry by offering accessible Italian-made cashmere designs at entry-level price points.
Super. How did you get there? So, did you always want to be an entrepreneur? I know. I mean, I did stalk your LinkedIn, so I know your journey. So you've done a couple of degrees, and then you started. Did you start in Tiffany, or how did you get into this luxury segment? Because for an end consumer like me, getting into a Tiffany store is an experience, and we always dream about that
Mm.
day, getting into these luxury stores. Sometimes it's very unaffordable. So what um how did you get into this segment, because there's so many industries? What attracted you to this segment? And I think you've had a very good career, growing up the ranks in one of these big companies. So what made you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I would say I kind of stumbled into luxury, but then stayed within it, and it kind of led. It's the journey of how I got into entrepreneurship. But I stumbled into it through an internship at Burberry at the time in the customer analytics segment and CRM segment. So really looking at like customer data, analyzing the different tiers of customers and how we can increase loyalty. And then straight on from that, moved into Tiffany, which is where I started in the e-commerce segment, which was really great because I understood and got to learn the business from the website and how that moves, but also how different elements of the website convert, and also how what you can do to kind of influence buying habits. And then got poached by the CRM and client development department, which was really beautiful because at the beginning or during my journey, transformed from the really data heavy side, similar to what I was doing at Burberry, to really about loyalty. And I think this is where I found my niche, is this like building relationships with the customers, understanding how we can increase their loyalty, how we can make them fall in love with the brand. And I really owe the appreciation and the idea of My Cashmere to my luxury experience, because I started to understand how important it is for a customer to have a relationship with a product, and how they really can fall in love and storytelling, fall in love with the product through storytelling and what goes in behind the product. And obviously I was looking after the biggest segments of clients, so high-end business development, and we were doing these big high jewelry events of 350 people plus in Paris, Dubai, London at the time, but then COVID hit. And yeah, I really fell in love with how you could sell these multi-million-dollar gemstones purely on the emotional relationship with the client. And I actually fell so much in love with gemstones that I began a gemology degree, which was great because you really understand this like craftsmanship and the heritage behind it. And then during the lockdowns, I came up with this idea of cashmere because I was looking for garments that were effortless but elegant at the same time and kind of made you feel as good as you looked while wearing them. And went down a rabbit hole of cashmere and what cashmere, like the world of cashmere, where does it come from, its unique properties, and really fell in love. And then I saw this market gap because I saw that the market was very fragmented. You had Italian, very luxurious, beautiful cashmere designs with high craftsmanship being retailed at very inaccessible prices for most. And then the other side of the segment were pieces being produced abroad in China, Mongolia. And me myself, as the owner of this brand, I know the price point of cashmere. I know in order to get it sustainably made and ethically made, what it costs, and by the what most brands are selling and the ones that are being produced overseas are selling at for. I just know the economics don't make sense. So I realized that there was a market gap to create a brand that was offering you the dream of owning Loro Piana and Brunello Cucinelli, but at price points that were accessible to more people. So that was kind of where it came from. And really, really also honing into this like sustainable fashion
Mm-hmm.
movement of buying less and buying better.
Okay. Are you wearing one of your pieces today?
I am. Two of them, actually.
Super cool. Okay, I actually want to pick into and dive into some of the things that you mentioned, which I think is is very important for all the listeners to know, and
Yes.
it's something that's rarely spoken about in the world. So, what do you think is the key difference between a consumer that buys these luxury brands versus someone who goes to a Mango or a Zara, these high street brands? And how is that relationship different? As in, when I go to, let's say, an H&M, what am I thinking
Hmm.
of? Me as an end consumer, what are they thinking versus when they enter a Burberry, when they enter one of these big brands, luxury couture brands, what are they thinking? And I really want you to explain what that emotional relationship means. How do you know that the relationship has been established or not? What sort of data points or data markers do you look at?
Yeah. I think when you go into the high street brands like a
Mm-hmm.
Zara or an
Mm-hmm.
H&M, it's really impulse buys, right? It's more about like, I need this and let me get it as quick as I can in a place that I know is going to deliver like mediocre quality that will do the job, so to speak. Versus when you go into a brand like a Burberry or a Tiffany or a Loro Piana, you're buying into the brand story. You have an affiliation. It's a dream. You're fulfilling that dream of I am wearing this, but I'm also proud to wear it. And there's much more consideration, and we know that through the data points that customers, obviously it's a considered purchase. It takes time. It's education. It's not just talking to them about the product and putting the product in front of them, but like, where does it come from? How is it manufactured? And what's the story behind it?
Very interesting. Another question that I want to ask is, so correct me if I'm wrong. So I always think luxury is not a volume thing. It's a high value sales. You curate every single customer that comes in. They understand your story. They understand the vision. They buy into the mission, and then they make that purchase. They make that investment, so to say. Um, so when it comes to business, pure business sense, does it make sense to then get into the high volume sales, just keep going versus these low volume but high quality, high value things? How did you make the decision? Yes, I understand there's a strong affiliation to creating a sustainable world, but is that all, or why luxury? And is it difficult, or is it the same as having any other e-commerce business? How is it different?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I never wanted to get into fast fashion into rapid purchasing. I think that that's something that's just a personal preference and also how I personally shop. And I think it's also, you kind of mentioned and touched on the point of sustainability. I think this is something where we need to move into in the future. I don't know if you've heard of the Rule of Five, which is founded by a really incredible editor, Tiffany Dark, and she basically talks about how in order for us to hit the targets that were set out in the UK, we need to reduce consumption by 83%, which actually breaks down to 5 new clothing items per year. Now that's a really hard one, and a lot of people are like, "Whoa, don't! That's really difficult to manage, and it's almost impossible, especially if you're buying from the high street brands." And I'll tell you why. It's because and it's the same thing almost with like eating, right? Like when you have something so easily accessible, we're in a world where everything is so fast, so on demand. It's like I can order my Amazon, it's here tomorrow. I can walk into the shop, I can have everything I need. If you don't have that barrier to purchase and it's just so accessible, you almost always go for that, which is why I really love this framework of rule of five. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to be a challenge, but I'm going to do this. And haven't purchased a single thing this year because the amount of effort you have to go through mentally to think about where you're buying from and what you're buying, um, really outweighs, like it really stops your purchasing process. So that's really really a great trick. So I think it's moving into this sustainable aspect, and it's something that we all need to kind of join hands in and move abroad. We have 92 million tons of textile waste every year, and it's just not, the economics don't add up again. And I really do believe that there is an element of recycling, which I'll touch on afterwards, which you can do with yarns, you can do with cashmere. But recycling is not good enough. Like resale is not good enough. Like not all of that is going to save us. What's going to stop us is consumption, and it's all about buying less and buying better. So this is kind of where I wanted to fit in. I know that most people can't afford to pay £2,000 on a sweater, but can you pull back your buying habits and really save up for a really high quality sweater that's going to last you a lifetime? And I really believe in loyalty building with customers. It's what I've seen in my career as well, is that when you really build that relationship with the customer and they buy into a great product, they'll keep coming back time and time again. So I'm in it for the long game rather than the short, immediate purchases, which is hard because as a startup, you are really trying to build quickly. But I really believe in like the product. And this is the thing that I see, is that every single person, like our return rate is almost next to nothing. Like we've had 11 returns in 2 years of starting. So let me, like, that's just the baseline. Um, and I really love this idea of really, building that relationship with the customer in the long term.
Super nice. I really want to stress on one thing. So people always think about, oh, I'm going to recycle that. I'm going to put that into circulation again. But then what they forget is it's reduce, reuse, and then recycle. So we really need to focus on how do we reduce all the consumption that we do today. So super good.
Correct.
Okay. You want to touch upon recycling. So do you want to do that now, or is this part of the challenge bit?
No, I'm happy to talk about that now. No, the challenge is more on the
Super.
like
Yeah.
entrepreneurial journey. No, so
Cool.
for my cashmere, I really spent a lot of time investing into yarns, and looking at the yarns and making sure that they're sustainable. So I use 100% cashmere, which is sustainably certified, and the whole production line is regulated in order to ensure the goats, the herders, are all being looked after, and the environment are all being looked after, and that it's actually building a sustainable cashmere industry for the future as well, because that's all what we all want, is to continue our production practices in the long run. So this is really a wonderful yarn. It's spun in Italy, really high quality. And then I use recycled cashmere, which most people don't know about, and it's really neat. It's also an Italian manufacturer that does this, and they do post-consumer and post-factory wastage. So to explain, post-consumer is, I have this cashmere sweater. Let's say I shrunk it, I washed it incorrectly, or something happened, or moths ate it, or I don't know what, it got destroyed. I no longer need it. I can send it off. It gets shredded and respun into new cashmere yarn. It's not re-dyed, which means there's no water, there's no dyeing agent. So it's a really sustainable practice. They get batch sorted by color, so they're not custom made, but it also really like eliminates the production practices, which is really cool. And post factory is when I'm making my cashmere sweaters, our scraps get sent off there as well to be shredded and re-engineered.
Thank you so much for explaining this, because as an investor, and also with the huge regulatory tailwinds that we see in Europe, a lot of companies are struggling to really get more visibility on the entire supply chain. They understand, oh, one level up and one level down, what's happening, but then beyond that, it is still a struggle for lots and lots of consumer good companies. All
Yeah.
right.
And if I
Yeah,
could just
go.
jump in there, that
Hmm.
was one of the things, and I think it's so important for startups to take into account. It was like a selfish decision, but also like a sustainably made decision. I said, like, if I'm starting this business now, I'm going to start it on the right foot because these regulations are incoming, whether I like it or not. And rather having to retrofit, which most brands are doing,
Are
let me
trying
have
to
the
do, yeah.
competitive advantage exactly and get going from the get-go.
No, I think that's right. That's the only way, and that's the best way to go about it. This is similar to the debate that we had in the last decade, or maybe a couple of decades ago. When does culture start? Do I bring in more women now, or do I put in culture in the first few years of my business, or do I think about culture and diversity 5 years into the business? It's just so hard to change. One of my bosses used to say this. It's so hard to stop a well-running machine. You can't bring it to a stop and change things and then get moving again. Whatever you want to do, get it done
Change
day
the
one.
change the fuel while flying, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now moving gears and getting into the meat of the podcast, which is the three main questions, the challenge. So, what is one of the most pivotal and decisive challenges that you faced in your entrepreneurial journey? Tell us about why is it so challenging and why is it so important that others have to hear that challenge and hear that story. And also, as always, tell us how did you maneuver that, and also maybe get into if you maneuvered it well and right, what did you do differently than others that led you to make that decision or led you to come out of that challenge with flying colors. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Um, I think in terms of challenge, I'm not gonna say one specific challenge, but rather just the ongoing challenge of the journey in general, which is that you are constantly faced with opportunities and challenges throughout the way, and it's really hard as an entrepreneur and when you have a million things on your plate to know exactly what is the right decision and to take the right opportunities. And this is something that I had to really learn. And I think it's such a valuable lesson. And I speak to so many founders about this. First and foremost, everyone who is a founder, speak to other founders because it is a very lonely journey. And when you start to realize that everyone is on the same journey, it's incredible. I think we both connected actually, or I found out about you through Founder Social, which I'm part of as well, and a couple of other amazing organizations. So that's the first thing. And it's also what your podcast does, which is wonderful. But what I learned is that, like I said, you are presented with a lot of opportunities all the time. And what you see through big success stories or big entrepreneurs is that usually their businesses comes to or their business success comes from a few very select amazing opportunities that almost feel like too good to be true, like divine planning to see that this happen. You see it with LVMH, you've seen it with Bill Gates.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've read the book Outliers.
Oh, yes.
By
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell, which talks all about how these unique opportunities. Like, yes, it takes hard work. Yes, it takes a lot of resilience, but it also takes amazing opportunities and luck almost. And what I found in my time, and it's really hard when you're an entrepreneur to understand what are these opportunities and what's
Hmm.
a what's a trick or what is a
Hmm.
not the right opportunity. And what I've learned is that I divide them into two categories, into sliding doors and magic pills. And bear with me
Okay.
on this one. So,
Okay.
sliding doors are those opportunities that are going to catapult your business. And these usually feel, and I really devise it down, and this is kind of just my own trick. I devise it down to almost gut instinct as well because I think our gut intuition is so strong and so hard to trust as well, and almost trust blindly sometimes. But we all know that we take sometimes decisions and we're like, I knew it was right. It wasn't right, or exactly very much more than we knew than the times that we go after opportunities that were right. And sliding doors are those moments where you have an opportunity in front of you and it seems perfect. All the pieces almost align in a way that you can't really make sense of, and also it feels right, like it feels like almost like a full body yes, and like this is amazing, and excitement. Magic pills is the thing that everyone tries to sell you. As an entrepreneur, you know that your inbox is constantly full with like,
Yeah.
I have these services at this and I'm going to 10x your business. Magic pills is the thing that every single person wants to sell you, that they're promising you the world. They're promising you that your business is going to turn around because of taking
Mm-hmm.
this magic pill. And it feels, and it's really hard to kind of differentiate which one's which. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, what I noticed is that it feels very, there's a lot of anxiety, like I should do this, but I'm not really sure. But and it feels like a lot of like noise in your head, like you're almost scared to not take it, but you take it just like unwillingly. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the time that I've always had, or I've always made the wrong decision if I go into that area, knowing that what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And it cost me a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of frustration. And as an founder, it's really hard because if you go into these opportunities and you fail, it breaks your confidence. And a lot of people close their businesses because of taking these magic pills. So this is kind of, whenever something lands, I like sit with it for a moment and I try to understand, is it a sliding door? Is it a magic pill? And I have so many examples of this.
Oh, please give us one. Yeah.
Please give us one. Okay, the best one that I can think of was,
Mm-hmm.
I guess in my case, it's all about like sales opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I get daily, like I was saying, daily options of like, I have this SEO business or I have this digital marketing business. I'm going to boost your business and
Yeah.
you give me, I don't know, £2,000 plus this budget for this
Mm-hmm.
and that. And that is, those are being constantly sent your way. But the biggest like contrast, and it's almost
Mm-hmm.
like a very neat comparison that I have, is I had an opportunity to fly to New York for a showroom that was going to be this big press showroom. And I got this beautifully decorated deck with amazing names, like industry players that everyone knows about, big magazine names. Celebrity names, and we're going to do this dinner, and it's going to cost you X. It was going to be a fortune, especially as a startup, like a big, big, big investment. And I sat there and I had this in front of me and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. But like, it's really a huge portion of my budget. It feels uncomfortable. Like I feel nervous, but something was just off. And I was like, I was trying to pinpoint what it was and I couldn't. And something happened that made me not be able to take it, like a family emergency or something that I wasn't able to go. So I declined it. But I knew in my body that this was not the right path. A week later, I get another opportunity to go to New York a week later from that original date. It was a little bit more scrappy, a little bit less put together. However, the like budget was less right. Somehow the dates aligned. I needed to meet someone in New York at the same time anyway. There were some people there that I wanted to meet as well. And it just all the pieces aligned and it felt completely right. It made perfect sense. It was easy. It was effortless. And I decided to go. It was one of the biggest trunk shows that we've ever had. It was 2 days of incremental selling that like just catapulted and also exposed me to so many opportunities that I still benefit from today because of this one opportunity. And retrospectively, I found out that the other one was a complete facade and that none of the people that were on the list showed up, none of the industry players. So I would have been out a lot of money and no results.
Wow, that is it. It does feel like God's plan. Um,
Correct.
So the first one in your category would have been a magic pill because you need to pay for something. It looked like, oh my God, it's too good to be true, but this looks like a fantastic opportunity. But you had to decline that, but some because something was not right, and then certain circumstances also didn't allow you to go pursue that opportunity, and something else came your way, which gave you the
Correct.
same exposure, the same sort of opportunities. It opened the same similar kind of doors. But it's about so basically it's about trusting and tuning into your gut feeling because I think our gut remembers and then it sort of I think I mean this is true and now I'm 30 and I'm trying to lean into my gut feeling as well because our gut sort of
Mm,
picks in on those um underlined, or those signs that our brain doesn't pick up, we don't see
Correct.
consciously. um cool.
And we're also so busy constantly consuming things that when things
Mm-hmm,
happen, we don't have the time or
mm-hmm,
attention or effort to
mm-hmm,
filter it out. And usually, the other thing I would say about magic pills is that it's always very like instantaneous. Like you have to make this
mm-hmm.
decision by this date,
Yeah.
and it's like this like pure anxiety. So
Pressure.
whatever, yes, I wish I knew this. And the reason why I picked this out as the challenge to talk about is that I wish I knew this. It's something that I now use to approach
Mm-hmm,
my business almost
mm-hmm,
daily is I receive something and I really ask myself, is this a sliding door? Is it a magic pill? Why? And you can go through it
mm-hmm,
like, hey, process of elimination, like write down the
mm-hmm,
bullet points as to why it
mm-hmm,
fits, why it doesn't, and really figure it out. Like, is there anxiety? Is there fear of missing out? Is there a time crunch?
mm-hmm,
And also, does it make you feel unwell, like physically unwell? The amount of
mm-hmm,
money that you have to pay, or just
mm-hmm,
the opportunity? Is there something off? And
mm-hmm,
really sit
mm-hmm,
with it and trusting it, and knowing that something better will come along.
mm-hmm. Okay. um Also, Felis, are you a solo founder?
I am.
Okay. So, and you also touched upon this in the first half of the conversation, is that it first of all, being an entrepreneur is one of the toughest things on earth. And second, being a solo entrepreneur is all the world's pressure on your shoulders. Apart from speaking and socializing with other founders that are in similar journeys, do you have a mentor? Do you have a coach? How do you, because certain decisions are data driven. When it comes to budget, you look at the numbers, oh, this makes sense, doesn't make sense. But certain decisions, which are those huge leaps that you need to make, it could be super hard, because the burden of the decision rests in your hands. How do you sort of, so first of all, do you have help? What is your mechanism there? Do you have anyone to bounce your thoughts off? And the second half of this question is, let's say you put your leg into one decision or one course of action, and you realize it's not going as per plan. How do you then retrace those steps back, and how do you pivot? Have you you know it's a very open question, but I'd love to know your thoughts.
Mm. No, for to answer the first part of the question on the support side of things, so I have amazing people around me, both in my personal life, but also my professional life. So you've met Katie, who is my PR agent, but is like the most amazing person, right? And she's both personally but also professionally, and she's just somebody who is a great sounding board. And I think that this is something so important again, is to invest in the right people, and to invest into people that are able to be there for you more than just in their working capacity. And that's definitely something that she is. And I have multiple other examples of that, of people who work with me on a freelance basis, or support me part time, as well as a couple of mentors, advisors that I bounce off of, and I just reach out to them and flag things past them. Ultimately, the decision does reside with me, and this is one of the hardest things about being an entrepreneur: is you get all of the no, I wouldn't even say all of the benefit, because that's one part, but that takes time to build. But all of the burden constantly, you're
Yeah.
taking it all on yourself, and you really go through this process of like, it's not just, and there is imposter syndrome, massively, which I've kind of devised, and I've said I don't even believe in imposter syndrome anymore, because we all have it. So it's just
Yeah.
the standard like way of being. It's not even a syndrome that we have. So let's not differentiate ourselves. We all have it, but you go through this, like you really internalize as a founder, especially when it's your business, of
Mm-hmm.
like, this is not working, I'm bad, like it's my, like I'm the one that's wrong, like I'm not capable, and you're constantly going in this loop, and then you're
Yeah.
like, this is amazing, oh my god, this is awful, I'm awful, and it goes like this on and on.
Yeah.
But it is really helpful to have people and to invest in the right people that, again, are those full body yeses, those sliding opportunities that are like, this person is going to help me get XYZ, but also is going to be a great sounding board. So that's really important. And I know that I'm super lucky. I feel super lucky for the people that I have. But one of those big things I would say is founders groups, because that makes you feel more included and inclusive. So definitely look up in whatever city you might be what those groups are like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, The second question that you had, remind me again.
So this was around decision making, and in case things are not going to plan, how do you then retrace those steps back? How do you pivot?
Yeah, I think you said it exactly as you said, is pivoting. I think that's also a skill set to learn, because when you're
Mhm.
going down one path, it's like, no, no, I have to stick with it. I have to stick with it. No, absolutely not. That's such a skill set, is to be like, okay, let me adjust, let me change. So I would say you adjust by pivoting and by moving things into a different direction, and also cutting your losses. And I think
Yeah.
it's really hard to take on that burden of like, this is not working, and to really yeah, to understand that this is not working, but to be able to say, okay, this is not working, but let me try something else, is really, and that's how you find your groove, and how you find what resonates for your market and for your consumers.
Yeah, you touched upon something that's very important. You said pivoting is a skill that's acquired. Um, it's
Mm,
very interesting that you say that, because we see a lot of founders that have put in that do put in a lot of effort into building something, and then I see that the feedback from the market or the customers, investors, is slightly different, and then there's so much sunk cost fallacy. Oh my god, I've invested so much of my time, my energy, my resources, capital into this. I want to make it work. And also personally, there's a lot of ego tied into this, that I don't want to change. um, how do you then develop that skill to, yes, in the beginning it's going to be hard, but then you need to really be objective here and then think about what's best for the business. So how do you, what are some tips that somebody can, or what are some frameworks that people can keep in mind when they have to learn or acquire this skill of pivoting and then looking for the right signs? How did you do that?
I think in my case, it took me time. But
Mm-hmm.
I think this is where this podcast is so wonderful, because, like you said, you're standing on the shoulders of giants, you're
Yes.
learning from people.
Mm-hmm.
So, as someone who has now done it, I can tell you the only way around it, and it's not an easy answer. It
Mm-hmm.
is just pivoting. It is, don't get too attached to any outcome. Don't get too attached to one pathway of doing things, or one product style, or one product identity, right? Just understand that, okay, this might not be working. It doesn't have anything, and like, view it objectively. It doesn't have anything to do with you. You haven't made a mistake. You haven't made a like wrong, like, you're not bad for making this decision. It's just that you're adjusting something. And I think also, part of that is really important, and this is one advice I have for founders. I see this so often because I speak and I mentor a lot of people who
Mm-hmm.
are starting their business journey. I always say, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Start with your business plan right away. You have an idea. People start to churn this idea in their mind for like almost years, starting to think about, like, I think about this, but no, I can't do it. I can't do that. Write a business plan. First step, right? Like, that's the basis of it. And then just start, because when you start, you learn so much, and
Yeah.
it's just a skill set. But just learning, and like, I would say it's not even, for me, I learned it along the way. Like, there were product pieces that didn't work well. When I launched my business, I was still working at my previous
Mm-hmm.
company, not launched, but when I was developing it, and we did
Mm-hmm.
this massive e-commerce photo shoot at the time. And I had let the casting off to the agency that I was working with. Cost a fortune. Again, like, absolute nightmare. They cast models that looked really young and didn't resemble my target audience. And
Mm-hmm.
when I put them up, I had spent, yeah, a fortune at the time
Ah.
for this shoot. And
Mm-hmm.
I had two models because I had to go big or go home, right? And I wanted to show a little bit different aesthetic. And then immediately within 3 months, understood this wasn't working, scrapped it all, used like whatever I had left to reshoot the entire collection from scratch in a much more scrappy environment, with one model who's amazing, who's the person you now see on my website. It has become a great friend throughout that journey, but and we did it really scrappy for a third of the cost of the original shoot. And I just knew I had to pivot. It was like literally heartbreak, because you spend so much time and investment, but I just knew it was right. And at that point, had to move.
Super. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I also want to sort of nudge you in one point is,
Yeah.
um, what do you think you did differently or better than other founders that are in similar journey in e-commerce, luxury, consumer good sort of industry? Because not all startups succeed, right? 99% of them end or close down within a year or 18 months time, but you've been going strong. So also, this is not coming from a sense of, pride, or, blowing your own trumpet. It's just to see that what are the mistakes that you've pointed and you've avoided successfully to be able to sustain in this industry, to be a running concern for so long. So what are those small things?
Hmm.
It could be small, big. What did you do differently, and what could others do differently?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I've said this several times before, B2C specifically, but I think
Yeah.
any founder journey, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
Hmm.
And I would say it's a mistake I made. I'm not gonna say I did it rightly. I went for the marathon. I was
Okay.
very overly ambitious. I thought my collection was gonna sell out within the
Hmm.
next day, first days. And I really was not prepared for the
Hmm.
marathon. I then built that later on and really
Hmm.
pulled back resources because I fell into all of those magic pills. Like, let me start with a digital marketing agency. Let
Yeah.
me start with this. Let me start with the best website, with this, with the best
Hmm.
product. And I invested so heavily at the
Mm,
forefront, thinking that it would pay off immediately. But especially in my industry, in consumer, it takes time. Consumers need to build trust with you. They need to see you time and time and time again. And it really, like, there's no easy answer other than it is a marathon. So preparing yourself for that and preparing yourself that it's going to take twice as long and double as
oh,
much money. I
yes.
keep hearing this. This is like, just keep that at the forefront and manage those expectations with yourself. And I think also resilience, like, you get told a million times again and again, and I think you touched on it earlier about the ego,
Mhm.
like making sure that your ego is not getting your hurt, your own personal founder ego of like,
Yeah.
I'm not good enough, or this is not good enough, or whatever not, but just really believing in your product. And I think when a lot of startups that fail, it's also they didn't believe in their product enough. It's like, I keep coming. I could have closed at the beginning quite a few times, and I was like really on this verge. And then I just asked myself, I was like, I know I believe in this product. I know it has a place in the market, and it's just within about withstanding that, and that's the marathon sprint.
Mm,
Marathon, not the sprint.
yeah. Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for that. So the last question. So what are some of the productivity tools, tricks, tips that you would employ in your everyday life and work to keep sane, to be better? Because being an entrepreneur is also wearing all the hats that there is in the world and getting things done, being on top of things. So what are, a couple of tools that you use to feel productive, or to be sane? Yeah.
Okay. I have three.
Mm-hmm.
My first one is compartmentalizing.
Mm-hmm.
Second one is time blocking and like agenda planning. And the third one is done is better than perfect. So starting with compartmentalizing, especially when you're a solo founder, you wear a million different hats, and it like almost feels like you are playing all of these different games, and you have to try to kind of navigate and hone yourself in. And I try to think about it by saying, okay, I even though I'm one person, I have one, like a couple of other people that support me freelance, but ultimately it's one person. I still need to go through all the tasks. So me being by myself, I compartmentalize and I say, okay, at 9 o'clock, I'm meeting with my marketing team. And in that marketing hour, I just spend it on marketing. Everything else gets put aside. I'm with my team and that's it. And then I move to my finance team, and then I move to my operations team. And it might even be days, and you block that out and you find out those times that you need to focus on one thing. Because if you do all of them, you get nothing done. And I still struggle. I still do it some days and I'm like, I did nothing today, but I feel like I've done a million things. The second one is time blocking, and it kind of goes back to that other point. Katie has honed me in and like pulled me in, and she also has a really great tip, which is plan your day the day before. Don't plan it on the day of. So you plan your day the night before. You sit down. I have like a little calendar invite that reoccurs every night for the next day. and that tells me, okay, plan the next day by hour. You block through your day, and then you find out those, whether you're meeting with your marketing, your finance, etc. And then like you can have the little to-do list on the side within each of them, but really making that like time blocking that day out, and also having like your objectives for the week or for the month that you need to do. And these are simple, these are high level. There is like no more than 3 of them, and that's it. And then the last one that I would say is done is better than perfect. I say it all the time. Do not wait for things to be in their absolute pristine state. Get it to a place that it can be done, that it's deliverable, but if you need to tweak like a tiny thing, or you're like, no, I need to do one last thing, or this is not perfect, just go with it. It will be fine. And usually those things that you're obsessing over now are not going to matter in 2 weeks' time. So just go with what you have, obviously at a high quality, and delivering something that you're comfortable to put out there, but still making sure that you move within speed and efficiency, because that's what it's all
Mm-hmm.
about as well, is like the speed at which you can work.
Mm-hmm. Super nice. Thank you so much, Phyllis, for this conversation, for the tips that you've had, and also sharing your journey with us in all its candidness, in all its vulnerability. Also showing, not all days are rosy days. You do make mistakes, you learn from
Mm,
them, and you keep moving forward. Thank you so much for that. It was wonderful having
thank
you
you.
on the conversation. Um, yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on.